the Lithuanian students, university colleagues and practitioners. A very nice colleague of us, of our Department of Social Work and Social Welfare, Oksana Boiko. She is from the National Kijevo University, Kijevo Mohylos Academy. She's head of the social work department after the name of Professor Poltaveco. And she has experience in social work teaching, social work research, in such fields as international social work and mental health, community resilience, and unfortunately, because of the Russia's war in Ukraine, Oksana is gaining more and more, like all her Ukrainian colleagues, social workers and teachers of social work, gaining experience in social work during war. And Oksana kindly agreed to join our lecture that we have for our fourth year students of social work. The course is called Social Ecology, and during this course we analyze with our social work students social work during catastrophes. And we thought that it's very useful to invite Oksana and talk about social work during war in Ukraine. And we will have a presentation, a lecture by Oksana Boiko, associate professor from Kiev University, and it will be followed by a discussion, and we think we will be ready by 4:30. The lecture will be recorded, and we intend to upload it in the YouTube channel of our department. So those who cannot attend or cannot be entire time will be we'll invite you to check our YouTube channel for this lecture. So Oksana, the floor is yours. Please share your slides and take over.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting, and thank you everyone for being together today. And I do hope that despite the topic, so we would have an interesting discussion today. And I'm happy to greet everyone who joined for today's class, for today's open lecture. And happy to see students, colleagues, and all those who are interested in the topic. So my name is Oksana Boiko, and as I was presented already by Professor Egle, so she was telling a bit, but about my interests and etc. So I will just start telling about or going to focus on the topic of social work during the war. So I've been working as a social work lecturer for the last 15 plus years, and for the last 4.5 years I'm chairing the department, which is the School of Social Work. And these last 4.5 years, actually 2 years of COVID and 2.5 years of the war, I would say that they are more about crisis management and social work education. So that's why my focus of professional interest, which is mental health and social work and psychosocial interventions and etc. So, and international social work, they are of great use now. So just briefly before I go or delve into more details, I'd love to say that brief you a bit about the social work context in Ukraine. So it's a non-regulated profession. Actually, the academic education and training has started back to 1995 when the first master program was created, and then the first bachelor program was created in Ukraine at the base of my own university, at my own School of Social Work, because it was the first one in Ukraine from where education and training of social work started back to over 30 years ago already. Yeah. So in PhD, the first ever PhD in Ukraine was also established at the base and developed, piloted, and introduced at the base of our School of Social Work, National University of Kijevo Mohylos Academy of Ukraine, which is also supposed to be one of the oldest universities in Ukraine. So in Ukraine, we have three levels of higher education in social work. Education programs are accredited by the National Agency on Quality Education and Higher Education of Ukraine. And actually, social work is present across 60 universities across Ukraine. We also have educational standards for social work education developed and approved by the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, and also have professional standards developed for most of the social work occupations in Ukraine. Also, quite popular, there are different types of advanced qualification training, like in academic institutions, across different NGOs, international non-governmental organizations, UN organizations. So in most cases, they are not certified, but if they are delivered at the base of educational institutions, they are the participants received certificates. So the National University, this is how my university looks like. It is located in one of the oldest parts of Kiev, which is Podil. Yeah, and you can see the sign Kijevo Mohylos Akademia, which means the National University of Kijevo Mohylos Academy. Mohyla is after the name of Petro Mohyla, who was one of the founders and also who actually used to study here as well, back to several hundred years ago. So it's a very nice area with the Dnipro River over there. So I don't know where you can see, but I love this area very much because I am myself a graduate of master program of this very university and also a graduate of PhD program at this very university. And as I told you, I have been teaching there for the last 15 years. So I told you about the first programs which were created. Also, I told a bit about my School of Social Work, which I'm representing today, which is the oldest one. Also, I'd love to say that we, amongst the other universities, so we are we're the first member of the International Association of Schools of Social Work and also the member of European Association of Schools of Social Work and Eastern European Regional Association of Schools of Social Work. So I'm sure that you know, until present, you know this map by heart. Yeah, so this is the map of Ukraine. And so in many versions, it's a kind of interactive map. And of course, it is being changed with every month, every week, and even every day right now. Yeah. But just to say that some people think that the war only is at this part, which was occupied, very quickly. So you see the Crimea, which is occupied, as well as the eastern part of Ukraine. But I want to stress that the war is all across Ukraine because, as Professor Egler was asking me at the very beginning, so every day, all across Ukraine, we have air siren alarms, which means that there are some missiles flying, being sent by Russians from different locations, from Crimea, from the occupied territories. So they are being sent at a distance from all over Ukraine. This means that the missiles can hit, the targets in this part or in this part or in this part. Yeah. So you never know, and every day is unknown for many people. Because you don't know whether you will be able to hide, in a bomb shelter. We actually have very few of them. We have like shelters. All across Ukraine, and not even in some cities still they don't have, they are lacking them. So it's quite a huge challenge, and very often we compare this situation with the situation like a kind of roulette, so you don't know, it's like kind of forget-me-not flower. If you remember this child game, so when you were a child, maybe you were playing this game, you were just taking the petals and were saying, or thinking whether somebody will love you or not. Yes. So, and here is a kind of picture by Ukrainian artist, and you can see the missiles. And for us, it's a kind of whether the missile will hit or will not hit the target. So you never know, and this type of uncertainty is not only thrilling, but it's rather dangerous, yeah, for everyone. Because you do not know every day what to expect, whether you will be able to hide or not, or the missiles will be first. So here are some of the pictures that I'm sure you have seen a lot all across the internet, yeah, in many news and etc. But just to show you the reality. So I live in Kyiv city, and Kyiv city is a large one. So it's the population before the war, unofficial, was up to 8 million people. Officially, there were around 4 million people. Now, of course, it's a bit less, because many people moved outside Ukraine. I will tell about that a bit later. But these are the results of the missiles attacks for Kyiv as of December last year. For instance, here you can see the playground, and this is the actually the something that was left after the bomb. Yeah, usually they are much, you know how to say, much deeper, these holes in the ground, yeah. But you can see that people, especially early in the morning, people can actually sleep, and then the missile is hitting. So some people are sleeping, some people are going to search for shelters. But if it's every day, of course, people are getting tired, yeah. But for many of them, it's the cost of life. So it's Kyiv, the capital of city. It's also its kindergarten, where the missiles hit, which was opposite the block of flats. And you can see the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, who is just watching the outcomes. This is Kharkiv city, one of the most severely bombed every day and hit by missiles. And you can also see that so many people are still there. Yeah, they live and work every day, but this is the outcome of the missiles hit for the blocks of flats. This is Lviv city as for summer 2023. And if you remember the map, this is the very far west. Actually, yeah, it's almost with the border with Poland. And you can see how, so this is the one of the houses in the center of the city. So you can see that the missiles, yeah, are sent everywhere. Yeah, as everywhere, non-dependently whether there are military people or not, but they are hitting peaceful targets all across Ukraine. And these pictures definitely you have seen them this summer, because it's Children's Hospital, a National Children's Hospital, where all children from all over Ukraine are being treated. And you see on the right the picture, the children which were saved. These are children who were treated by cancer, with cancer. Yeah, and actually on the left, this is the new several floors building of this very children's hospital, with the surgery offices and etc. and wards. And I live for 5 minutes of walk from here, and I should tell you that it's really very awful, actually. So if you never know, you don't know, and this type of uncertainty is very you know, is killing you every day, yeah, honestly. So this is how the cities, small and large cities closer to the front line look like. So you see that people almost can't live here, yeah. So everything is destroyed, so you can't live here. And in many cities and many small and large cities and villages, there are just ruins instead of them. Everything is smashed. So if to come back to the Ukrainian current context, so official, we have actually official and non-official figures. Officially, we have approximately 7,500 rockets. It's for December 2023, but non-official, of course, much more. Yeah, so which have fallen in the area, because you can't count all of them. Yeah, official number of casualties is around 11,000, but honestly, official number is already over 1 million people. Just because it's again, this is the issue of counting them. And in many cases, it's impossible. It's just impossible because you should find, you should identify, then you should have some documentation prepared. And so I'd like to say that this is, unfortunately, the number is extremely huge and exceeds several hundred times, if not thousands, of the official number, thousands actually. So as for the official figures by UNDP for June last year, we have around 1.5 million homes destroyed. Yeah. But again, non-official number is much higher because these are the only homes which were, identified, registered, and etc. So 26 population, this is of population unemployed rate. This is according again to the official registration, official registry. Yeah, this is the State Service of Employment. So Ukraine now, as for the UN data, according to the United Nations data for 2024, Ukraine now is the most mined territory in the world, actually, because over 40% of Ukraine, 40% of Ukraine is with mines, is mined, which means that it is impossible to live, to work there, to to plant vegetables and fruits, or etc., or to use it for any type of industry. And actually, according to the Ukraine humanitarian response data for the last year, for the end of the last year, so around more than 3.3 million people, including 800,000 children, so they are living along the front line, and they require emergency assistance. Yeah, you can see that this is actually the population of the whole European country. Yeah, and this is something that I keep repeating when I go to the other universities, and I meet students and professors from other countries, or practitioners from other countries, or decision makers. I keep saying that the numbers are extremely high, that this is a kind of like one country, several European countries, are IDPs, population of IDPs. If you see, for instance, the figures of a United Nations Organization for Humanitarian Assistance, so you will, for the last year, for December of last year, you will see that they identified 17.5 million people in need. And amongst them are 6.3 million internally displaced people, 4.4 million returnees, so people who fled from the country but then returned back. And for some of them, or for most of them, there is nowhere to return, because either of a mined territory which was occupied, or the territory which is mined and not yet prepared to live and work at, or they never would return, but have to settle to be resettled somewhere else across Ukraine. 6.9 million people who have remained at their homes throughout the war. And these are people that are in acute need, because some people, so they can sustain their living, but in many cases, as you might know, war makes vulnerable populations even much more vulnerable. Yeah. And if you see the number of refugees from Ukraine to other countries, so according to the data for the UNHCR for May last year, so there are around 8 million people. Again, so this is around several European countries, yeah, who are refugee population. Can you imagine? Yeah, the huge number of them. And just a small figure, a small number actually, to show you the discrepancy between the need and between the demand, and the offer, actually, and supply, demand and supply. So you can see that, for instance, for the 2022, according to the Ministry of Social Policy of Ukraine data, only 500,000 people obtained social services, during the first year of war, including around 300,000 internally displaced people, like legal, social, psychological aid, housing, humanitarian employment support. So you can see 500,000 people, and you can see 17.6 million people in need, and you see how large the demand is for all types of support, and in the first instance, the support by social workers, the humanitarian support and the support by social workers. If we if I briefly could, paint the mental health and psychosocial support needs in Ukraine, of course, so we can say that most Ukrainians live in anxiety. They are tired, permanently tired. There is a kind of moral exhaustion because of acute accumulated stress. So they have low level of welfare and quality of life. And the main sources of stress, of course, is a situation of constant threat to life, uncertainty about the future, economic difficulties, fears for the safety of loved ones, and separation from family and friends. So women have the lowest indicators of psychosocial well-being as a whole across Ukraine. And of course, because of the major stress factor, because the threats which are faced, they are faced mainly by the women who actually, after their men left for the war to defend the country, so they became sole heads of households. They became sole people responsible for children, for earning living, for caring about elderly parents of their own, but as well as caring about elderly parents of their husbands. 46% of respondents, so they have mobilized to the war relatives and close people. 10% lost their relatives, beloved ones, or they were wounded or lost. So we do have a lot of people who are supposed to be lost, and the number is being increased because it's impossible to identify whether they were killed or whether they were taken to the territory or captured, and or whether they were imprisoned at the occupied territories. So there is a lot of uncertainty about that, and we call it unidentified loss. So, and 45% of parents, they have challenges in supporting their children. And if we talk about adolescents, so they feel the loss of childhood and the lack of opportunities for a careless adolescence. So their lives, their lives actually changed so rapidly because they had to become an adult very quickly. So for them, the military conflict became a major stressor. And of course, they demonstrate impulsive behavior, social distraction, emotional nap, cognitive problems, and many others. So if we talk about the challenges for social work practice in Ukraine, so you can see, as you can see from the figures already, that I've presented at the previous slides, so you can see that there is a huge, incredibly large, massive number of IDPs. So 1/6 of the population. It's a huge one. So massive humanitarian needs due to destruction of housing, enterprises, high level of unemployment. Of course, because of the need of many services to be provided, to address all types of needs that I was talking earlier. And in the first instance, of course, we talk about humanitarian support. We talk about food, shelter, everyday means. So lack of access to healthcare, to social services, to food, shelter, and especially by the most vulnerable groups, so palliative clients, so people with mental health problems, people with disabilities, elderly people. So we also have a lot of children who became orphans, those who were left without care, and it's a special issue because especially during the war, so the reform on deinstitutionalization of social services for children, it started before the full-scale invasion, before the full-scale war, but during the war it is being even intensified because of the such a huge need, because of the large number of orphans, of the war orphans. So also the challenges, as one of the challenges, is the huge number actually of people who are in need, as I told you, around 80 million people. So amongst them, IDPs, Ukrainians who stayed at their houses despite the war, and refugees abroad as well, because there's the issue of social cohesion, the issue of returning home or not returning because there is nowhere to return, as I told you earlier. Also, one of the challenges is the gap between the education and training of social workers or social work practitioners, and actually between the need of practice. So I will tell about that. I will elaborate that a bit more further in my presentation. So, and especially for social workers, it's extremely challenging to live between the normal routine and between the permanent danger exposure, And we can talk about shared traumatic reality of social work practitioners with their clients, because the reality is that the social work should be implemented in permanent war, in ongoing war and terror across the country. So it's not something that was and then ended up, but it's something which is going on, which is an ongoing every day, every night. So, and you have to, get up early in the morning, get prepared for your work, and take care about your family, but go to the work and take care about your clients, but also not forget about yourself, take care about yourself too, So a huge cumulative stress, which of course results into a high level of professional and personal burnout. We really do have a huge number of amongst of cases of burnout among social work practitioners, but also we have shared resilience in traumatic situations. So it's as Professor Orit Natman-Schwartz was describing in her articles, which were based on interviewing the Israeli social workers. So we also can talk about shared resilience, because while working with our clients, of course, we have a shared trauma issue, The more we hear, the more, let us say, we can, if we are not prepared, to have vicarious trauma or shared trauma, but also shared resilience, because the more stories we hear as social workers, so we can learn a lot from our clients. We can learn a lot of really huge, resilience, which helped people not only to survive, but also which is helping to thrive, even despite the current context. So if I talk about in general about social work during the full-scale war in Ukraine, so I'd love to say or to stress that the role of the profession has increased in the community because social workers became inevitable part of mental health and psychosocial response, both for the state and non-governmental organizations. So if we according to the World Health Organization mapping in mental health and psychosocial support in Ukraine, for winter of this year, around 81% of MHPSS activities, they were actually offered to support or train social work workforce, because every agency, every organization, in addition, of course, to the Ministry of Social Policy, so they consider social work workforce to be incredibly important within such a huge emergency like war in Ukraine. So social work in healthcare settings became more and more visible. If before the full-scale war we were just discussing different types of positions that the social workers could hold, so now we have already some pilot projects supported by the World Health Organization, by the Ministry of Healthcare of Ukraine, by the Ministry of Social Policy, about social workers' positions included into healthcare settings. For instance, social work position was included into healthcare package funded by the Ministry of Healthcare. And this concerns the package which is funded by the government for community mental health teams. Also another package which was piloted, developed by our lecturers who are also practitioners in parallel with teaching. Yes, so they developed within the pilot project and piloted, and now it is approved or adopted at the level of the two ministries already. So multidisciplinary rehabilitation teams in healthcare settings. So social worker is already part of them. And it's extremely important if we talk about populations, like veterans, their family members, but also people with disabilities, who are in healthcare settings, but can actually be addressed as many social problems and different types of problems by social workers as possible while they are in healthcare. Social workers became inevitable part for the overall care system for soldiers, veterans, for their family members. We can talk about their presence in social rehabilitation across communities, in social support in healthcare, in social support patronage while serving in the army, in social service in military units and healthcare settings of the armed forces of Ukraine. Also mobile multidisciplinary teams, which are extremely popular because many people, they can't reach or can't have access, physical access to many services because of extreme shelling, for instance, by missiles, or because of a distant areas from the services. So, and this is one of the ways how you can reach the clients which are in need, not only in humanitarian, but also in different types of other needs to be covered. Yes, so communities with limited access, as we call them, and resilience centers. Of course, resilience centers, this is a new initiative that I will talk about a bit later today. Community resilience centers are supposed to be the hubs across communities where social workers have the key role. So we can say, in general, that there are different types of concepts underpinning social work practice during the war, and amongst them, the ones or the following which might sound very familiar to you, like individual, family, organizational, community resilience, trauma-informed practice, vicarious trauma and vicarious or shared resilience, individual and collective post-traumatic growth, compassion fatigue, diversity and inclusion, social cohesion, human rights and advocacy, community development, and of course, many more. So if you talk about the general frame, I love to say that this very document, which is a document of international importance, has been adopted to Ukrainian context, has been contextualized and translated into Ukrainian after the invasion of Russia back to 2014, invasion of Russia to Ukraine, and when the war started at the east of Ukraine. Then now, since 2017, it is being widely used all across Ukraine. Yes, and it's about, these guidelines are about planning, needs assessment, planning, coordinating, monitoring MHPSS in emergencies, including wars, or the other types of conflicts, disasters, epidemics, and etc. So there are key principles here, as well as 25 key intervention community practice-based programs. So I have a separate type of training for not only me, but other professionals. So we have a separate type of trainings for community practitioners, because actually this is supposed to be one of the key frames right now, with the key principles like human rights and justice, community engagement, available resources and capacity usage, support system integration, multi-level support, and not making any harm. And the key or the focus of these guidelines, which are being used by all the international organizations, but also this became the framework for many national or public funded organizations. So the IST intervention pyramid, here you can see the 4 layers, but as I told you earlier, this is the focus of a special meeting or workshop. Can you hear me well? I'm sorry.
Yes, there was
Yes.
some break, but now we can hear you.
Okay, because I see that there is something with that. Okay.
Should be good now.
Yeah, okay. So just to check. So if to speak about the mental health and psychosocial support, which is the large focus right now, especially with the full-scale war, because mental health is something that has been damaged severely, and is being continued to be the focus. So there was a pre-full-scale war context when there was a national policy and plan aimed at the service transformation. To tell me if there are any. Just a minute. So can you hear me right now?
Right now, yes, but there was again some disturbances.
I'm sorry. Yes. So I just go on. So the special mental health and psychosocial technical work group was launched back to 2015 under the auspices of World Health Organization office in Ukraine. And actually, I myself have been part of this and member of this work group since 2017. At that time, it was around 35 organizations. And for present, in Ukraine, it's the largest group in the world, which comprises over 320 organizations from all over Ukraine, which are engaged into mental health and psychosocial support provision. And a huge number of services and huge number of workforce is, of course, social workers, and amongst them community workers as well. So since February 2022, as you might be aware, there was a national mental health initiative launched under the auspices of the First Lady of Ukraine. How are you? And each ministry, including the Ministry of Social Policy, is having now its own key priority mental health project. So for the Ministry of Social Policy, under this initiative, the priority project is resilience centers. Again, I will elaborate a bit more in a few slides. So also a huge coordination effort was made, and last year there was the Interministerial Coordination Council for Mental Health created under the prime auspices of the Prime Minister of Ukraine. And I am myself happy to be part of this center as an expert, as a trainer. And this center is actually the one which is responsible for policy practice, and introducing mental health initiatives all across different areas and different scopes across Ukraine, across different types of ministries and across the communities, across higher education, so everywhere, actually everywhere. And in such a way, so I can just sum up that MHPSS was included into the national response and recovery planning. So you can see here the English language version of the Ukrainian roadmap for prioritized multi-sectoral MHPSS actions. And you can see there, if you would delve into, just to read or to see, so you will see a lot of actions, priority actions, which were offered as the key ones, as the evidence-based one and available in Ukraine during and after the war. So the ones that were recommended to be used. As I told you, despite the fact that each ministry of Ukraine has its own priority MHPSS project, also each community now is responsible for mapping services, for mapping mental health and psychosocial support services to find gaps and to plan how to fill them. Also, there is a network of regional MHPSS coordinators at each oblast of Ukraine under the auspices of this coordination center, which are arranging different types of mental health workshops, seminars, events across all the sectors. And amongst them, there are also people with a social work background. So each oblast of Ukraine has its own MHPSS coordinator who is creating different types of networks within the oblast, but also between the oblasts related to mental health. And of course, we have intensive training and teaching social workers on MHPSS issues in various settings, because there is an increased awareness all across Ukrainian ministries, but also communities in the first instance, about the need of social workers, during the war, and especially like they are like gatekeepers who are bringing people, to the different types of services. So social workers are now being trained by the international organizations in different types of evidence-based interventions. If I talk about World Health Organization, so they usually offer MHGAP training, also problem management plus, and other evidence-based programs that they scale up all across Ukraine. So a special direction is the MHPSS technical working group that I already told you about. And they also are responsible for mapping, for the national mapping, in order to identify what is available, but also in order to identify the training needs and to suggest offline and e-training for social workers, but also some kind of cluster activities. So you can see a very complicated map, of which units or which type of units the MHPSS consists of. So you can see. So there are different types of clusters. So there's the humanitarian country team, which is responsible for humanitarian issues, and you have here health cluster, protection, education, other clusters. You have different types of task teams, so they are related to the training programs which are being disseminated all across Ukraine. In education, for instance, on MHGAP, on stress management, you have regional technical working groups for the oblasts which have the largest number of internally displaced people. All the largest humanitarian problems. So you can see Lviv, Chernivtsi Oblast, Zakarpattia Oblast, South Oblast of Ukraine, East Oblast Hub, and etc. So, and this technical work group includes national, international, governmental, non-governmental, educational organizations, all types of organizations that are engaged into mental health and psychosocial support during the war. So you see that the focus or the activities of this group is around information management, networking, technical guidance, promotion of best practices, sustainable solutions, capacity building, knowledge exchange, monitoring and evaluation, advocacy and awareness raising, maintaining actually the networking together. So bringing all people, all the stakeholders together and coordinating their efforts. And as I told you earlier, they have this type of mapping. Before 2022, this mapping was done once in half of the year. Now, every 3 months. So there is a mapping which allows to map what kind of services, and it's a kind of who is doing where, what, until when, and for whom. Yeah, so they collect answers for these questions from all these over 320 organizations in Ukraine. So I just put here at this slide the link, so you can see the updated information. And as I told you earlier, actually, the priority project for mental health for the Ministry of Social Policy of Ukraine is the Community Resilience Centers. And they have been established back to last year under the auspices of the Ministry of Social Policy. So for present, they have contracted around 170 centers in Ukraine, which means that they will receive, they already receive government or public funding for providing this service. And the service is called Psychosocial Support on Strengthening Resilience. It's a very strange title, but Ukrainian ministry has to fund somehow, and in order to fund something, they needed some kind of a more or less focused title. So they decided to call it like this. But all of us should be aware, of course, that resilience is something that part of resilience we receive from our previous generations. Yeah, so it is inherited by us. But most of our resilience, our own resilience, can be strengthened, built upon, developed through our lifespan. So these community centers, they are supposed to have kind of community hubs to help individuals, to help organizations, families, communities to strengthen their resilience. Yeah, and to help them to become self-sufficient. And in the first instance, they are focused on community needs assessment, on raising awareness, on psychosocial support, on developing parenting competences, on mutual aid and self-help groups, on supporting veterans and their families. Yeah. And of course, in the first instance, it's about training to develop and strengthen self-reliance for various populations. It's about increasing social cohesion across communities, increasing all types of capacities across community. Also about enhancing volunteer movement, yeah, and actually making in general communities resilient, yeah, if to be honest. So I'm also happy to be part of the people who are developing this network in consultation with the Ministry of Social Policy. I'm an expert on developing the network of resilience centers. And for instance, we have, together with our Center for Mental Health in Kijevo Mohylos Academy, so we have been offering last year some training for their resilience centers on the first psychological aid, on kind of in trauma-informed practice, and this year on the community crisis management. Yeah. And still we continue to develop cooperation and intend to work further on strengthening community resilience. So if a special issue is, of course, Ukrainian children during the war, and just bring some kind of children, pictures of children, so the stolen childhood. And you can see that so these are children who are hiding during the missiles attacks. So there is a recommendation: either you can go to the shelter, or if not, if there is no shelter in your house, so you can go to the protected areas in your flats, and the most protected are bathrooms. You see in the bathroom they are just sleeping, and near the doors where there are no windows, no glasses, or etc. So this is more specific for rural areas. So when it's a basement in the rural area, so you see the very babies, the infants sleeping during their missiles attacks. So this is how people, they create some kind of, by themselves, some kind of shelters where they collect together with their friends and neighbors. For instance, my friend has the same in the village where we have been hiding for the first 2 months of the war. So if to speak about the large cities, yes, so here you can see children who are having their classes in the underground at the underground station. You can see the teacher who brought the children from the nearby school, which is the nearest one to the underground station. These are the steps of the underground. And this is how in many cities and towns, especially rural ones, the shelters in the schools look like. So if there is a siren alarm, so all children and all the pupils, and together with their children, so together with their teachers, they have to go there. And we have already the first underground schools. What it means, that you can see here in Kharkiv, this is the primary class, so the first year's pupils, together with their teacher. So this is actually the territory on the underground station. You can see that it was built like with the plastic doors and windows, but also we have a lot of underground schools open in the suburbs of large cities, in the underground, especially where there were large plants, enterprises which haven't been used for a long time. And so at the territory of these plants and enterprises in the underground, they built classes, kindergartens, even primary schools, and also not only primary, but the secondary schools in general. So this is the tendency for the second and third year of full-scale war already. Actually, the issue number one is Ukrainian children stolen by Russia, because the tendency is that they stole children from us. They either take children from the people who cross the territories which are occupied, who are for some occupied territories, for instance, if people want to move outside these territories, to escape occupation. So they are forced by Russians to move to the territory of Russia. So they are not allowed to move to the territory of Ukraine. And then these units where they cross the border of occupied territory and Russia, so very frequently children are separated from their parents. So there are also some other ways of how they are stolen, but I will tell you right now. So officially registered number for the last year is around 20,000 children. According to the data by the Ministry of Reintegration of Ukraine. But as I told you, these are only people who were calculated by official data, which were registered somewhere. For instance, children from institutionalized care. So estimated number by Ukrainian officials is between 200,000 and 300,000 children. Estimated number by Russian officials is around 730,000 children. So there is an official existing English language report by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, dated as of May 2023, which describes in details in which ways these Ukrainian children become subjects of to forcible transfer. So first of all, evacuation for security reasons, then transfer for the purpose of adoption or foster care, which is very often happening, with a lot of so people are deceived, and temporary stays in the so-called recreation camps, which is very frequently says when happens, especially when it concerns the occupied territories, when parents are forced to give their children for 1 or 2 weeks to go to Crimea or to some, good places for the recreation camp, and then children disappear, because they are moved further. This is also the issue number one for children under 14 years old, because they actually have no say in the whole process, because legal guardians decide for them. And in many cases, if the issue of adoption concerns children under 14, the legal guardians can make decisions, and they change surnames, names, age of children, when they produce the documents. They make children change the citizenship from Ukrainian into Russian, and then they change a lot of data, so as it could be impossible to track them later on. For their parents, for one of the parents who's still alive, or for their relatives who are alive. So the Russian sources report that there is a great interest amongst Russian families in having children from Ukraine placed with them. And actually, in Russia, they have payments for these families which decided to adopt Ukrainian children. And these people who adopt these children, so they are also made, they are forced to go through patriotic, so-called special patriotic courses, they themselves, but also the children that were adopted too. So there are a lot of practices which were described in this official report, but also, of course, we have a lot of initiatives in parallel which are going on in terms of registering crimes of war, because these are really crimes of war, in order to bring all those responsible to the court. One of the initiatives related to social work, which I would love to bring or to brief you about, is the initiative which was initiated by Professor Daria Zavirshek, who is the president of the East European Association of Schools of Social Work. It is sub-regional to the European Association of Schools of Social Work, by the support of the International Association of Schools of Social Work and East European Association of Schools of Social Work. So the initiative is called Solidarity and Support with Ukrainian Social Work Educators. So since February 2022, we have been having already 42 online meetings related to coordination, networking, sharing, collecting war-related narratives, fundraising, workshops for educators, social work educators, students, practitioners, etc. Also, as one of the spin-off of this initiative, because it has had a lot of spin-offs, because it's the initiative which includes or engages many Ukrainian universities training social workers, but also universities and professional associations of social workers from all across the world, which would like to join, to contribute, to bring something. So, and one of the spin-off of this initiative was also a small-scale project on social work in war context, about exploring and collecting empirical evidence from Ukrainian context, and also based on this data, developing training modules on social work with elderly people and social work with people with disabilities. So you can see Professor Daria Zavirshek, Anna Maria Campanini, who has been until this summer the president of International Association of Schools of Social Work. You can also see Professor Lina Dominelli, who has been very active, Professor Shulamit Ramon, who also have been since the very beginning. And actually, the picture of one of the first workshops that we had back to back to April 2022 for around 600 social work practitioners working under the auspices of the Ministry of Social Policy. So the issue number one was on social work with IDPs during the war, also social work with sexual violence survivors, which also it was the second workshop. I do not place the picture here because we have had it in a closed format, but it was, of course, very popular. And as Professor Egle was asking a question, so she asked me to say about something about the social work students, yeah, and social work lecturers, how they cope with the atrocities, war atrocities in Ukraine. If we say about the general negative impact of war on students and lecturers, so we say that, of course, because of the increased rate of killing, injuries, disabilities, dislocation of citizens, yeah, loss of relatives, friends, lots of losses of homes, employment, huge wave migration, yeah, so increased level of trauma and grief across the students, across the teachers' communities. So these are all the challenges that are faced by the teachers, by the lecturers, and by the students themselves, and of course an increased mental health problems, yeah, because lecturers and students, social work lecturers and students, they keep practicing and they also suffer from the same losses, yeah, as identified above, yeah, but also from the reduced budgets, yeah. We do have a lot of reduced budgets for salaries, for many payments because of the war, because most of the resources are being channeled to the war needs. And of course, lots of students, but lots of lecturers too, they have symptoms of stress, such as deteriorated sleep, anxiety, trouble concentrating, problems in communication with their peers and teachers, yeah. So access to internet, access to laptops, to any type of equipment because of air sirens. Sometimes you take it with you, sometimes not. And because of hiding in shelters, basement, underground stations, sometimes there is internet, in most cases not. So the need to combine study, work, and volunteer activities, yeah. This is something that makes you in several roles at one time, in addition to the everyday threat, yeah, to be killed by the missile. Then stay at the occupied territories. We still have had a lot of people, a lot of students, for instance, we have had at the occupied territories last year and the previous year, as well as a lot of our students are IDPs in other areas of Ukraine, as well as a lot of students are temporary asylum seekers, yeah, including my students from our School of Social Work. So, of course, we have impaired cognitive abilities, yeah, among students, but also among lecturers, and lack of concentration due to prolonged stress and worries and anxiety, actually, deterioration of health due to the war or resulted from the war, and of course, psychological condition of all of us needs, leaves much more to be desired, as we say, because it's a kind of, it's like a waves, yes, because as one of the students of the first year of the School of Social Work was, our School of Social Work was saying, since all the activities were related to responding to the war and working with people in the difficult, in the complicated circumstances, so the psychological condition didn't return to normal for a long time, and it also affected the educational process itself. So the students and teachers, you can imagine that they had a COVID pandemic, then which was followed by the war. So there was an issue of social isolation, an issue of social cohesion. And so we not smoothly, but actually, switched from the pandemic isolation to the war. From one side, isolation, but from another, cohesion, yeah, because in many cases it was about cohesion, yeah, being together jointly to oppose the war. So the issue of distance, online, offline learning, the need to take care of themselves, of their family and the clients they work in parallel with the job responsibilities, with the studies responsibilities. And as I tell you earlier, so the various roles they had, volunteers, fundraisers, stop fake activists, IDPs, refugees, military, then defenders, because many people went to the so-called territorial defense, which means that you are serving to protect the area you live. And at the very beginning of the full-scale war, that was very helpful because people could work together not to allow rapid invasion into many areas of Ukraine. Shared trauma because of occupation, because of missile attacks, because of losses. So extreme number of losses, including unidentified. Mental health problems, anxiety, sleep disorders, depression, teaching and learning conditions, lack of electricity, water, heating, accommodation. These are all the issues that we say thank you if they are present, and we, if they are lacking, so we are waiting for them, but we are learning to live in between, as I say. So if we, for instance, in Kiev now, we during the daytime we might not have any electricity or internet at our university between 4 to 6 hours a day, or sometimes even more. So if to specifically somehow differ this negative impact, so we can say that the educators, you can imagine educators planning and organizing the educational process in the time of uncertainty when you can't promise anything. So you go for the classes, but then immediately you don't have internet, you don't have electricity, you have air sirens, but you do have to deliver your classes, to train, to teach students. So revision of the university educational format, because we switch from one format, from synchronous to asynchronous and back all the time. The need to comply with all academic requirements, because including organization of internships, research and qualification papers that the student write and we supervise, accreditation processes. For instance, I myself have survived 2 accreditations of our bachelor and master program. I was I am the chair of the department, but also I have been the head of the bachelor program, and then the head of master program, which was accredited during the war. So it is something, as I say. So students, of course, in addition, so they need to follow this educational process organized by the educators in war, because they need, but they also need to combine study and work, earn a living for their parents, especially those people who are temporary shelter seekers abroad, and they have parents, grandparents who do not speak foreign language, but they somehow have to survive, have to live. So difficulties in terms of learning, in terms of the learning capacity, cognitive abilities, because of depressions, anxiety disorders, depressions, because of losses, grief and bereavement they have. So difficulties with attending classes, even if they attend classes, they might not even be able to focus or be concentrating on something that you are telling to them. So, and the need, of course, to comply with all the academic requirements, to pass the tests, to pass the exams, to complete research, writing qualification papers, and etc. So here are some narratives of some of my students back to 2022, where they remember how they were moving, how the war, how they were challenged by the war, the first months after the full-scale war was launched. So for many of them, so as Olga says here, it seems impossible to live happily when someone's child or woman is being killed or raped in Ukraine at the moment. So first of all, I wanted to be useful to Ukraine and Ukrainians. So, and then she tells her experience, how she was trying to help in the area where she moved as a temporary shelter seeker. So it was at the very beginning. We have many students and academics who returned back to Ukraine in half a year or in a year after the full-scale war. Yeah, some of people are still there. For instance, in our School of Social Work, we do have people from Kharkiv, people from Kherson who are staying abroad because they don't have anywhere to return. Yeah, so here's another student of us who talks about her feelings when she went to the west of Ukraine. She was escaping during the first 2 months of the war. So she talks about her experience as an IDP. Yes, upon arrival, my psyche gave up and I began crying hysterically for several hours. I didn't see myself as an internally displaced person. I wanted to help those who were fleeing the real threat. From the next day, she says, she became part of the volunteer group, and volunteering helped her to overcome these difficulties. And actually, many people now, I used to meet professionals who were conducting a lot of group work. So they were telling the group work in trauma context, and they say that helping others is one of the way of coping your own anxiety and your own problems. Yeah, there is kind of evidence brought by different types of studies across European countries that bring this experience as one of the most helpful ones. If to speak in general about the educational infrastructure, so you can see how many actually educational institutions were damaged or destroyed. Yeah, destroyed, and still they are going on. So that the destroyment is going on or is continued because we have an ongoing war. So this is the picture of from Kiev underground, February 2023. You can see the teacher. This is the a school teacher who is teaching online during the air raid sirens. Yeah, so you can see. And this is, unfortunately, this is the type of teaching that is being practiced in the cities which are severely attacked by shaheds, missiles, bombs, so all types of the things that are launched by Russians. So I was also asked by Professor Egle the question, what types of things social workers should be trained or should be prepared. So I can speak about Ukrainian social work practitioners, but also Ukrainian social work students. So military social work course, which have been introduced, for instance, in our School of Social Work. It was introduced after 2014 by one of our professors, Natalia Gusak, but now for the last year, this is the initiative by the Ministry of Social Policy, who are exploring military social work and want to even introduce a kind of a special social service for militaries, you know, in the units where there are lots of militaries. Yeah, so to introduce the social work position, because it is really very much needed right now. So they came to the military units authorities, people who are in the management staff. So actually came to the awareness that there is a high need for the social workers in the military units as well. So community crisis management in emergencies, various courses aimed at strengthening community, organizational and personal resilience, social work in humanitarian settings, basic social work courses. This is something that is for huge demand, especially for the different types of international and national, local, non-governmental organizations, because there is a lack of workforce, trained workforce, graduates of social work specialties, and there are a lot of people who become social work practitioners, but they have the other specialties, and they have to know at least the basics. So that's why there is a high demand right now for the advanced qualification courses to train on social work basics. Also to train on case management. So those people who didn't receive the basic education in social work. Community social work as well, for those people who do not have social work background, education background. Social work with gender-based violence in wartime. This is something that becomes, for all types of categories of social work practitioners and students. Social work with elderly people, social work with disabled people, suicide prevention, so-called gatekeeper training. Gatekeepers are people who are working with people and can identify people in need and can refer them to certain services. So this is why important this type of training, especially for social workers, as the ones who see people in need the most frequently. Supervision for social workers, burnout prevention, self-care and self-regulation for social workers, trauma-informed practice, social work with torture survivors and sexual violence survivors. Number one priorities and demand from many governmental and non-governmental organizations. And very popular are short certificate programs in psychosocial support in emergencies for social workers and community practitioners. And also, just if we talk about social work with elderly people, disabled people, but also with children and their families during the war. We say during the war because during the war there is an extreme need and a wide range of needs that need to be addressed. So what helps to mitigate our problem in this war? Problems, not problem, but problems. So meaning and purpose are wellsprings of hope. So when the world feels scary or uncertain, knowing what meaning we have for others and feeling a sense of purpose, it helps us to feel to ground ourselves. And the meaning of life for the Ukrainian people is to save the independence of our country, and it helps us to deal with uncertainty. And of course, huge support from lots of countries from across the world and their citizens are also a very big issue, a very huge milestone and base for all of us to feel resilient, to be resilient, to behave in a resilient way, but also to deal with the uncertainty. And we are extremely grateful for all of you, for all the Lithuanian people, for the Lithuanian government, for all the support that you have been providing, are providing, and will be providing. So huge thank you from everyone in Ukraine. Just to finish, very brief conclusions that the humanitarian efforts, of course, should be coordinated at all the levels, and developmental approach should be prevailing over a relief approach, because relief approach means that you provide only humanitarian aid, but for the third year of the war already, even humanitarian organizations, they do understand, they are becoming more and more aware that the humanitarian aid is not enough, that you should develop capacity, work on community capacity, work on human organizational capacity, family capacity, and their resilience in order they can be self-reliant. In the massive loss and trauma, of course, social work, key knowledge and competences on trauma, resilience, post-traumatic growth, social cohesion, as well as key humanitarian response programs and strategies, they are key, they are extremely relevant. Of course, also challenge number one is inclusive community, yeah, because we have an extreme number of children, men, women, elderly people, but also, you know, all types of ages, yeah, with physical disabilities, yeah, and we have to adjust our communities actually to make them much more inclusive. If we didn't think very well, we are not quite aware, you know, such fully aware before 2014. So now the number is growing very intensively, yeah, and it is crucial for social workers to ensure that all the communities are inclusive, yeah, that the human rights of all people are met. So digital social work, mobile social work, multidisciplinary cooperation of social workers, they are crucial to ensure a larger coverage of social work clients, yeah, with all types of needs, of their needs. Community work serves as a key factor because it has a healing effect for individuals, families, organizations. Small and large communities, they create their own hubs to address war atrocities, and social workers, they are you know, key networkers, yeah, they are key mediators, they are key facilitators, because the toolbox of social workers is the most comprehensive one and is ready to serve in all the contexts, yeah, for all types of people living in the community. And of course, social workers are people who have all the tools to develop long-term follow-up programs, which address not only the war atrocities here and now, but also which can foresee, you know, some challenges and can build the relevant programs to support different populations after the war as well during the reconstruction process. So by this, yeah, I hope that you were not too much tired, though I had a very intensive, you know, there's a lot of information. And of course, I think this is the topic of a separate course or a separate several days training that I tried today to pull together into 1 hour and I think, yes, into 1 hour and 20 minutes. But actually, I'm ready to answer any questions which you might have right now. So I would be stopping sharing the presentation, and I'm ready to answer any questions you might have. Okay.
Thank you, Oksana. That was very impressive. And I remember your presentation, Oksana was presenting during a social work research conference in Vilnius in April earlier this year. And she was putting in her presentation emphasis on digitalization and social work during war. And that was impressive as well, same as this particular presentation. And I'm very glad for those who attended and had a chance to listen and learn from your experience. I also very much even took a note on your emphasis that in Ukraine, the idea of social work is not just the humanitarian aid, but very much emphasis is on developmental support, and not just about the survival, but about building resilience. I think that's a very important message that we can bring from your presentation. So those who have questions, please, you can just turn on your camera, then we will notice that you are ready to ask question, or you can raise hand as you wish, or you can also write in the chat if you are more comfortable with that. So I guess while waiting for questions, I can perhaps ask one about what I heard during your presentation was also pretty much about the leadership of social work during the war. Did you notice that the leadership of our profession increased during the war, or you think that it was more subordinated to other professions like military, health, internal affairs? I don't know. So is there a space for leadership of social workers during the war? What is your experience?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question, dear Professor Egli. Yeah, so this is a very interesting and a very good question. But as I've been telling earlier in my presentation, I believe, and I have all types of evidence, that the leadership of social work has been increased since the full-scale war, because more and more professions started to identify the limitations of their professions and the scope of the responsibilities or job responsibilities they have, that they cannot exceed them. They cannot do something that social workers do. And then, so when there was a request coming for different type of professionals, then psychology or then the healthcare worker, so they started to become more and more aware that this is actually about the social work itself. And they started to uncover for themselves, or to discover for themselves, the scope of social work. Because unfortunately, the image of social work, in peaceful time, across many countries, including Ukraine, was that this is just, for somebody who is in acute need, just for food, for some kind of humanitarian reasons. But as we all know, as we all are aware, social work has a huge potential in terms of community development, and in terms of social planning, in terms of social development, in terms of capacity building and actually resilience, strengthening resilience. Yeah, because if we say about community development, the key point is strengthening resilience. And the key point for this IAC guidelines that I was telling earlier, also strengthening resilience. And the services which are, there, is more about social work, and community work, and very few actually about, healthcare, and some kind of psychological interventions, etc. But psychologists, so they now understand, for instance, that they can't do or can't cover all types of needs that the clients say. And if a client is hungry, you can't deliver a psychological intervention because he is hungry. Yeah. So if the client doesn't have any job, he's unemployed, so he can't solve his psychological problems first. So he needs to find a job, and he needs to do it in parallel. Find a job, have a shelter, or have somewhere to live, have a food, but also have a job training, and work on psychological problems. Yeah, so and this is something that goes together, and then we talk about multidisciplinary cooperation. So I would say that the role of social work has been increased, and the awareness has been increased in terms of what social work do, or what social work does, what social workers do in order to improve the lives, in order to help, in order to support all people now during the war.
Thank you. Do we have questions from our audience? Because I have one more, if I may. I would be happy to give the floor to someone else, but then I will ask a second question. What is your prognosis about perhaps modernization of social services after the war? Because, well, many institutions, services are also physically destroyed, so they will be rebuilt, modernized, and I have in mind these large psychoneurological social care homes, which was a big issue quite for Ukraine. And I remember that just before this 2022, February 24th, there were already attempts to start the institutionalization of care, of long-term care in residential institutions. So now, as some of these institutions were abandoned or destroyed, will they be somehow rebuilt, or will you be seeking to modernize the services and move more to community-based services for people with disabilities? But that also applies to other types of services which might need modernization.
It's a complicated question, and I would divide it into several answers, I assume. But I would first think about, so we all say that there is a kind of, even during the full-scale war, we need to continue, to keep the focus, to maintain the focus on community-based care. And if we speak about mental health, so definitely there is a focus on deinstitutionalization, on community mental health models, which are more and more supported by government, but also by different types of international donors, like World Health Organization. But also by the Ministry of Healthcare, by the Ministry of Social Protection. If I say about community mental health teams, so this is something that has been piloted for the 3rd year already in Ukraine. And this is about reaching people with mental health problems at the place where they live, with their families. So the tendency is more and more on deinstitutionalization, but the neurological dispensaries or institutions, they are being used now as shelters for many elderly people who have been rescued or evacuated from their territories near the front line, or from the deoccupied territories where it is impossible to live now, for instance, until everything will be rebuilt. So for now, they serve as rescue institutions. But many still as the institutions for people with different types of problems, because there is nowhere, the communities are overwhelmed with the number of internally displaced people. For instance, if you speak about small towns, for instance, Uzhgorod, so it has had, the Western Ukraine, it has had around 200,000 inhabitants. And you can imagine that the same number came as IDPs. So can you imagine their burden for the infrastructure? Because definitely the town wasn't prepared for such a huge number of people. Hospitals, schools, kindergartens, etc. So if we talk about the deinstitutionalization, so it is going on, the reform is going on, but it is slowed down by the war itself. And digitalization is something that is helping right now to cover or to enlarge the scope, enlarge the number of social work clients in different areas of Ukraine, to make it possible for them to receive these social services. In many cases, yes. But in many cases also to avoid this digital exclusion. So still we of course have the like eye to eye, units and centers where people can apply for help, for support.
Socialinis darbas.
Thank you very much, Oksana. And I think we are finishing pretty much on time, 5:30, the time for the lecture. And please stay safe. And I hope we will meet in good times after the war, or where we can continue sharing our experience and our friendship, academic friendship, and maybe some students exchange will also be possible. So we are very much looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Agle. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who is here today with us. Huge thank you. Would be looking forward to meet all of you in person, whether in Ukraine or in Lithuania. And thank you again for the support, for all types of the support, and for being with us and helping us to stay resilient. So huge thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.